Seen today due to the following WRAL news special.
Let's talk about climate change.
It's been pretty crazy.
It's hot and then it's cold and then it's hot again and then it's cold again and it rains and it snows.
We're going to talk to scientists.
Climate change is a given.
It's a pretty small effect.
We're going to talk to normal Joes.
Well, it's God's work. Well, I mean, you just got to live with it.
I don't think we have to fully understand it.
We're going to try to get to the bottom of what exactly is going on with climate change.
We came here to the top of the world, Barrow, Alaska, more than 300 miles north of the Arctic Circle, 71 degrees north latitude. This is where they collect data relating to the science of climate change, and this is where we begin our quest for answers.
Exploring Climate Change, a WRAL documentary.
The Barrow Observatory, the most northern outpost in the government's Global Monitoring Division. It's well below zero as Ross Bergener heads out into the Alaska morning. He's one of two full-time technicians here who take readings and maintain equipment. Matt Martinson also works in this remote research site. He made the move up here from the lower 48 states 5 years ago. So what sort of data are you collecting up here?
We're taking long-term averages of everything in the atmosphere. Greenhouse gases, ozone-depleting gases, and just a lot of general data that is important for climate science.
Climate research begins right here.
Zero.
With raw data gathered fresh from the atmosphere. Why here? Why is this such a good location?
For the Arctic, we're in a good spot because if we look at our tower and everything over this direction, our general wind direction is coming right over our observatory right here. And there's nothing in between us and the Arctic Ocean, so you just get these nice clean air samples off the Arctic Ocean that don't have local sources of pollution and are really well-mixed air that are representative of larger averages.
The air sampling sensors work around the clock. And the gear is so sensitive it records the anomaly just from their breath when they climb the tower for maintenance. And you go to painstaking measures to make sure that these observations are the best they can be, and even to the point of holding your breath, right?
Yeah, when you go out to do an air sample, you basically do the opposite of swimming, is you hold your breath or breathe in the whole time you're working with an air sample, so you don't contaminate it with your own breath.
Barrow, Alaska bills itself as the top of the world, 1,200 miles from the North Pole. A population of about 4,700. More than half of those are native Inupiat. Search online for Barrow and you will get the same headline over and over. Barrow is ground zero for climate change. What sort of changes have you noticed in the weather here since you were a young man?
Well, the ice has receded, receding every year, and it's not freezing as much as it used to towards winter.
The Chukchi Sea. It should be frozen solid this time of year. It's an important part of the area's proud whaling heritage. Glenn Apollock is an artist. He honors those who hunt by creating these whaling ship replicas from the baleen of harvested bowheads. Those whales are traditionally hunted from the edge of the sea ice. So it's completely open water in the summer?
Yeah.
Okay, and it was not like that when you were small?
No, it used to be frozen most of the time.
I have been here my entire life.
Susan Hope grew up in Barrow.
I have seen change. I can remember in October walking through 6 feet of snow, and now I'm not seeing that much snow at that time of the year.
She also doesn't see a direct connection between human behavior and climate change.
What disturbs me is when we have these patterns that we're experiencing and we all jump on the bandwagon that it's global warming.
We're repetitively seeing very high October temperatures that if you looked at the long-term record for that, it's amazing to see the difference.
A long-term record is important. Once a month, Martinson grabs a metal case and treks out beyond the buildings to get a unique air sample. This one is used to double-check and verify the daily readings measured on site. The air is sealed up in a special tank and shipped off for examination. All that data from Barrow comes here to the Earth Systems Research Laboratory in Boulder, Colorado, where that data is analyzed and shared with the rest of the research community. Air samples from around the world end up in this laboratory. The air is compared to a baseline sample, then greenhouse gases are removed and measured. The results are studied here and just down the road at the National Center for Atmospheric Research. What are greenhouse gases and what do they do?
Well, the main one that we talk about is carbon dioxide, and any gas that has more than 2 atoms to the molecule, so CO2 is carbon dioxide, H2O, water vapor, and methane, CH4. All of those are greenhouse gases, and they interfere with the outgoing radiation that would normally escape to space, and they provide a blanket for the planet. So they're heat-trapping gases in that regard.
Heat-trapping gases, creating a blanket for the planet. It's how the term global warming was born. We started with this as global warming, and then it transformed into being talked more about climate change. Was that a branding issue, if you will?
Well, the term global warming actually came into use as far back as the 1970s. So global warming slowly gained traction, but most people didn't hear the phrase until the late 80s, early 90s. But by that point, it was becoming clear that some of the bigger problems might not be the actual temperature rise, but the changes in precipitation. The fact that when it's dry, a warming climate will make it even drier, and where it's raining or snowing, the enhanced water vapor with the warmer temperatures can make it rain or snow harder. Because global warming doesn't really capture that piece of the whole puzzle, there is a general practice among scientists to start referring to it more generally as climate change.
So while the name has changed, the science hasn't.
I can summarize, I think, in a few sentences what we do know with a lot of certainty. First, human beings have caused the greenhouse gases to increase.
Right.
There's zero doubt about that.
Right.
Many, many lines of evidence, completely independent. We do know how greenhouse gases absorb infrared radiation from the Earth, which otherwise would go to space,
right, and
keep it in the Earth system. We know this we know that with great accuracy. And then we also know that especially the CO2 change on Earth will be with us for a long, long time. We are committing the Earth and future generations to high CO2 for thousands of years. This is known.
Right.
Well, so climate change is a given.
But more than 1,000 miles away here at the University of Alabama in Huntsville, Dr. John Christie doesn't deny the climate is changing or even that man has something to do with it. But his overall take on the issue is decidedly different.
The evidence that we have shows it's a pretty small effect. And as someone who is a working stiff climate scientist, I'm one of the few people in the world who actually build these climate data sets from scratch. The evidence just does not support the notion of alarming climate change.
Christie has testified in front of Congress.
You can see here.
His research uses satellites to measure global temperatures, a method he helped develop. He believes computer modeling of climate change just can't take into account the complexities of the atmosphere.
Our science is just murky. And I think the real story is that the Earth is not changing anywhere near what was projected, and that we really have a lot more to learn about the system. We're just not very smart when it comes to all the things that interact with this incredibly complex but beautiful system that we see out there.
There's no doubt whatever is going on, it's affecting the people here in Barrow, Alaska.
But Barrow, Alaska is not Raleigh, North Carolina. Coming up after the break, what we've learned here and what we need to know in the Tar Heel State.
WRAL's documentary, Exploring Climate Change, is sponsored by Emergency Property Rescuers and Alternative Power. Water, fire, smoke, or mold damage? Call Emergency.
I'm Ryan Oakley with Emerge NC Property Rescuers. Let us work for you through the insurance claim process.
When your property has an emergency, call Emergency. We'll respond in a heartbeat.
When the power goes out, your life is disrupted. Heat, air conditioning, refrigeration, phones, all gone. Want to take back control? A Generac home standby generator protects your home against power outages every second of every day, all year long, automatically, whether you're home or away. Control your power, control your life with a Generac home standby generator.
Alternative Power is your Generac power source in North Carolina. Call or visit alternativepower.com. Control your power, control your life. Alternative Power.
During the Honda Dream Garage sales event, why settle for less than a Honda? Turn your dream garage into a reality with a new Honda Civic, now just $159 a month. Drive an Accord with hands-free technology and 36 miles per gallon for just $199 a month. Or save thousands in interest with 0.9 financing. When driving America's most trusted brand can be more than just a dream, why settle for less than a Honda? Get to the Honda Dream Garage sales event now at your Honda dealer of the Carolinas.
Pay nothing down, get everything. Join Planet Fitness now and get Black Card access to everything Planet Fitness for $0 down and just $19.99 a month. Tanning, massage chairs, hydro massage, unlimited guest privileges, and of course, the judgment-free zone. All yours for $0 down and just $19.99 a month. But hurry, we can't give you everything for nothing down forever. $0 down, just $19.99 a month, and unlimited access to everything on the planet. We're not a gym, we're Planet Fitness.
When our home had major water damage, our first call was to Emergency. The whole insurance claim process went smoothly with Emergency on our side. Ryan and his team took care of everything.
When your property has an emergency, call Emergency.
Let's go from the most northern point of the United States to the most eastern part of North Carolina. These beaches along the Atlantic Ocean have been named some of the best in the country. The sandy shoreline brings in millions of tourism dollars every year. It's the best place to understand the effects of climate change in the Tar Heel State.
Sea level is rising, and when you go to these islands and the houses that are in the water today weren't built there. In many cases, such as North Topsail Island and at Nag's Head and Rodanthe, it's not the first row of houses. They're already on the second, in some places even the third row of houses. Well, give me a break.
Dr. Stan Riggs is a geologist at East Carolina University. He studies the effects of climate change along the North Carolina coast. Riggs is convinced the future of coastal communities is going to change.
If you're building a structure, a hospital, or a sewage treatment plant, or a water pipeline system, that's expected to last 50 years, you better think about what is it going to look like 50 years from now.
Seas are rising, there's no doubt about that, and we know that seas are going to continue to rise. Will they rise at a more rapid pace or less rapid pace? That depends in large part on what happens with global emissions.
Robert Henson is a meteorologist and a science journalist.
I wrote this book, The Thinking Person's Guide to Climate Change.
He points out greenhouse gases are not just a problem in the atmosphere. The ocean is also absorbing carbon dioxide as well.
Yeah, this is kind of the less appreciated side of climate change, I think. There's not a whole lot that's reported on the fact that the oceans are becoming more acidic over time.
In some places, this can actually be seen on small marine organisms. Their ability to form shells is one of the threats in that regard, and relatively small changes can make a big difference to some organisms.
And you can't live on the coastline without worrying about storms.
This wind is expected to pick up as the Saturday afternoon wears on.
What is your best guess as to how the overall hurricane landscape will change?
Generally around the world, as a consequence of global warming, you're going to see an increase in the frequency of the high category, Cat 3, 4, 5 storms.
Dr. Kerry Emanuel is a professor and climate researcher at MIT.
And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about North Carolina hurricanes.
Hurricanes and climate change are one of his pet projects. Can you see the Outer Banks being in danger within the century, or would it take longer than that?
Oh, I think absolutely they're in danger. I would say they're in danger now.
But back in Alabama, Dr. John Christie just doesn't see it.
And these notions of extreme weather changing, we don't find it. Whether you're talking about hurricanes, tornadoes, heat waves, droughts, floods, they're all pretty much like they've always been. And they're going to continue to plague us, but not really changing.
With sea level rise and with the possibility of increased storm intensity, that threat just goes up very quickly. And so the question is, what do you do about that?
It's a question that extends beyond our state. Here in the Rocky Mountains, about 12,000 feet above sea level along the Continental Divide, there is also evidence from the folks at the Rocky Mountain National Park that climate change is occurring here, and it's not good. Warmer temperatures may cause the tree line to climb higher, drier weather can increase fire danger, and wetlands could disappear. Back up in Barrow, they're already seeing some of those changes. Ryan Klimstra is from Hendersonville, North Carolina. He spent 4 years at NC State getting his master's degree in biology.
It's the only job I applied for when I was finishing graduate school, and I was fortunate enough to get it.
He studies animals in the Arctic region and sees the impact on herds.
There's been large declines in caribou over the past 5-10 years, and it's hard to say what there's no smoking gun, but and it's hard to say that climate change is solely to blame, but the climate, at least these weather patterns are having something to do with it.
Pattern is the key word there. Some of Klimstra's neighbors believe that what we're experiencing is just a natural pattern of the Earth's climate.
I truly believe that we are in we were in a high, and now we're hitting that midpoint, and within another 70 years, in my heart of hearts, I think we're going to start hitting some lows.
Okay, so we'll cool back down again.
We'll cool back down again.
Okay.
And I think that that's just a normal cycle.
But the science just doesn't show it.
So far, we've been dealing with cold, hard facts, science, real observations made by human eyeballs. But things are never as simple as they appear. In a moment, the politics and religion of climate change.
Next, DT, my exclusive Davy Fox serenade. I'm supposed. He's sharing song from his great new album and his national anthem Controversy. Then, we're on the set with George. Next, DT.
Tonight at 7:30 on WRAL.
It's a $140 million state-of-the-art facility designed to improve mental health care here in eastern North Carolina. Find out why it's years behind schedule.
WRAL investigates the delays tomorrow at 6.
The great things I'm going to do with my life is own a business. I'm really excited about it. I have a whole plan, and I feel like Durham Tech is going to help me a lot with my career.
It's called the Energy Freedom Act.
The Energy Freedom Act is such a huge deal because it will make solar available to almost everyone.
It's a bipartisan bill that will allow customers to get solar for no money down.
It seems about the only people that are not for the bill at this point is Duke Energy.
It's in their best interest to stay a monopoly as long as possible.
Call your legislator and ask them to get behind the Energy Freedom Act.
Support energy choice at ncwarren.org.
Beautiful in person. Such curves. Those legs. I love that fabric. That stitching is perfect. The wood finish. The Sofia Vergara Furniture Collection.
And Cindy Crawford Home.
2 great collections.
1 great store.
Only rooms to go.
When I came to Durham Tech, I was surprised at how similar it was to a 4-year university. I want to ultimately be a college professor. I want to teach history.
Register now for summer or fall semester.
This is the glamour and glitz of climate research in the Arctic. It's the daily task of monitoring and maintaining equipment in a harsh environment. We seem so far away here from politics. Back in the contiguous, this is a very contested topic. Whether or not man really is having a significant impact on the climate and how bad it could get.
Alaska is a state that a lot of the economy is dependent on fossil fuel production, and so you have that same balance, maybe for different reasons in Alaska. It's where it can be a highly politicized debate, and people have very strong emotions about it.
There is a polar divide when it comes to climate change.
Is climate change a fact? Mr. Harris?
No.
Ms. Grant?
No.
Mr. Brandon?
No, God can cause a climate.
Mr. Tillis?
No.
The temperature of the planet is rising.
It's a snowball, and that's just from outside here. So it's very, very cold out.
It seems most people have made up their minds.
Whether or not the countries actually become polarized in these ways, and political issues and scientific issues and everything else, is a little bit messy. Certainly some of the research that I've done has shown that the more often we talk to people who are like-minded, who share our common viewpoint, then the more extreme our viewpoint becomes.
Dr. Andrew Bender is an assistant professor at NC State University. He studies how controversial science is communicated to the public. He explains it's easy to filter out opposing viewpoints by selecting only like-minded people in social media and social circles.
With the advent of social media and internet blogs, 24-hour news channels, and so forth, it seems to me like everybody has become an expert now, that everybody has a bully pulpit, and that in some cases the truly credentialed people in a given field are sometimes drowned out.
I definitely agree that that's an issue. I mean, I think that it's very much kind of the loudest voice is what's winning out.
And for many, that loudest voice comes from above, and that voice is in conflict with science. But do science and religion need to be at war?
Evolution created this sense among some people that human beings are not unique, right? We're descended from apes, monkeys, what have you, and therefore we're not made in the image of God, right? And that's a very serious concern that people have. And so science is now sort of cast to have given us this kind of view, which is highly objectionable to many Christians.
Dr. Norman Wurzba is a professor of theology and ecology at Duke University. He thinks some people of faith just don't trust climate science because other science may contradict their religious beliefs.
So what I would be interested to see is that the people who are very concerned about science as somehow being a threat to their faith, that they go meet some scientists and start talking with them and find out why do they do what they do.
Facts and faith are both trying to answer the age-old question of why.
I'm going to start the story with the story of a very early climate scientist.
This theory of climate change goes back more than a century.
But he predicted that it would happen. And carbon dioxide did go up demonstrably. The measurements are very good, going back a long, long time.
And you can't blame that on computer modeling.
Really, really ingenious stuff. Of course, there weren't any computers back then.
And so as scientists, we have a duty to try to understand as best we can what is going on and what the causes are and what the implications are for the future. But the decisions about what to do about that is something that the general public, the politicians, everybody needs to be engaged in helping to decide.
Could you be wrong about all of this?
There's some chance.
If it turns out that this is not such a problem, what are we going to find ourselves? That we've invested in clean energy, that we're not polluting the environment as much, that we're not as dependent on foreign oil as we used to be? There's not a whole lot of downside to that.
There can be a downside. Decreasing greenhouse gases may mean more government regulation.
When you make policy to try to attack an issue like a believed warming of the planet, what are you doing to people?
We have immense opportunities in Alaska, but we are tremendously hindered by overregulation. And I think it's because of that the sky is falling. The sky is falling.
Personally, I feel we have a moral obligation to try to leave a better Earth for future generations.
And that's not a cliche for you.
No.
In a moment, some final thoughts about climate change.
WRAL's documentary, Exploring Climate Change, is sponsored by Durham Tech and Honda Dealers of the Carolinas.
The great things I'm going to do with my life is own a business. I'm really excited about it. I have a whole plan, and I feel like Durham Tech is going to help me a lot with my career.
During the Honda Dream Garage sales event, why settle for less than a Honda? Turn your dream garage into a reality with a new Honda Civic, now just $159 a month. Drive an Accord with hands-free technology and 36 miles per gallon for just $199 a month. Or save thousands in interest with 0.9 financing. When driving America's most trusted brand can be more than just a dream, why settle for less than a Honda? Get to the Honda Dream Garage sales event now at your Honda dealer of the Carolinas.
When the power goes out, your life is disrupted. Heat, air conditioning, refrigeration, phones, all gone. Want to take back control? A Generac home standby generator protects your home against power outages every second of every day, all year long, automatically, whether you're home or away. Control your power, control your life with a Generac home standby generator.
Alternative Power is your Generac power source in North Carolina. Call or visit alternativepower.com. Control your power, control your life. Alternative Power.
I'm Kevin Oakley from Emerge NC Property Rescuers. Statistics show that 90% of property damage restoration companies are not correctly insured to manage all of your water, fire, mold, or biohazard insurance claims. The company you choose should be covered with an all-in-one contractor's pollution liability policy. Any company without it is putting your property at risk. Unlike most companies, Emerge NC is properly insured and certified. When your property has an emergency, call Emerge NC.
When I came to Durham Tech, I was surprised at how similar it was to a four-year university. I want to ultimately be a college professor. I want to teach history.
Register now for summer or fall semester.
So where am I after the first leg of this quest? Well, many of you may not know this, but for much of my adult life, I was a hardcore skeptic. I didn't think man had anything to do with climate change. And then several years ago, I had an aha moment. Woke up one morning with a question in my brain, and the question was this: Greg, are you doing the same thing that the people you're criticizing are doing, in the sense that you're only looking for information to support what you already think? Fancy term for that is confirmation bias, and to be honest, I was heavily engaged in that practice. Since that time, I've tried to be more objective and fair and open-minded about the issue, and I've come to the conclusion that man probably is influencing the climate, and nothing on this quest has done anything to change that. I had a chance to talk to some of the top scientists in the world over the past month, and you can see those interviews on WRAL.com, keyword quest. Their answers were complete and they were honest. Is there still uncertainty? Of course. But just because we don't know everything doesn't mean we don't know anything. However, I was struck by the comments of Dr. John Christie and longtime Barrow resident Susan Hope. They both talked about the fact that standard of living is tied to the cost of energy, and that the abandonment of fossil fuels could stand in the way of progress for developing countries and perhaps even parts of rural Alaska. Well, I would never want to see that happen. Quite frankly, I don't think it has to happen. We have the smarts in this country to make sure that it doesn't happen. All we need to do is stop the name calling and decide to work together for the common good. And my final thought tonight, for people of faith, science is a gift. Embrace it. And to people of science, I would say, you don't have to believe in God, but if you respected those who do, they might be more interested in hearing what you have to say. Well, thanks so much for coming along on this quest with me. It isn't over by a long shot. We're going to keep looking at this, and we hope you will too.